me when I first came in this district, and now we got his niece on the line to help us kind of think through and navigate what we have to do for our kids, for our parents, for our community, for our staff, as we move towards the start of the year. And this isn't a one and done, and that she's going to all of a sudden just fill your heads, but she will start those things in your head, I think, to think about what are we got to work on together. Key thing, working on together, power of us still there. And I want to turn it over to Amber. And thank you so much for joining us, Amber. And we're thrilled to have you be a part of this conference. Amber, we'll kick it to you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for having me. And I think we just need to modify and say most people love Dr. Booth. Most. You know. Give me one second, get this pulled up. I'm absolutely honored to be here to share with you today about culturally responsive leadership. And before taking one step further into what that is, I first want to say thank you. From my heart to yours, thank you for all that you do as educators and administrators for our youth, for tomorrow. You are needed, you are necessary, and I am eternally grateful. So thank you. I also am very jealous that I didn't get to be in the TikTok video. So I would like to know who I need to talk to about that. But as Mr. Ford said, I have a wonderful father who is almost a 30-year veteran in school administration. And he was my principal, kindergarten through 6th grade. And then there is his best friend and my favorite uncle, my Uncle Dex. And I spent the formative years of my life watching these two men, not knowing at the time it's what you would call culturally responsive leadership. But I watched them set culture and make inclusion and inclusivity an expectation. I watched them as they held those around them accountable when they did not uphold that same expectation. And I watched what it did for the engagement of students and even his staff, things that I'm able to look back on and just go, wow. So I most certainly have a special spot in my heart for educators, and it will always be that way. I am, Amber Booth-McCoy. I'm a senior diversity specialist as well as the interim director of intercultural education at UAMS in the Division for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Say that 3 times fast. I am the senior facilitator and lead consultant at Just Communities of Arkansas. I am the CEO of my own diversity consulting firm, the Diversity Booth. And I love diversity and inclusion and talking about it so much that in my spare time, I am also the vice chair for the city's Racial and Cultural Diversity Commission. And when all of that is done, I am the mother of these 2 amazing boys right here, Jaden and Corday, who are LRSD students. One is will be going to the 12th and the other going to the 9th. So somebody please pray for me or send me tips or something. So in preparation for what to say to administrators, I of course reached out to my friends in administration because that is of course inclusivity. I wanted to know before I decided what I should tell you guys, what did administrators need to hear? And both of my friends, without hearing the conversation of the other, said, speak your truth. And I thought, oh, okay. I can tell them about all the times I spent in the principal's office or the times I had to go as an adult because maybe my son was in the principal's office. But after a while, and I waded through the ambiguity, I realized what they meant when they said, speak your truth. I am a scared Black woman with everything going on in society, with us navigating a global pandemic together, with continuous trauma of videos being reenacted over and over of Black men being killed, I am a frightened Black mother. My youngest is now 5'11". And even though I still see a curly-headed baby boy, I know that the world sees a Black man. So I'm a frightened Black mother. I am the terrified wife of a Black man. But really, I'm an everyday LRSD parent. Whenever I take off all those other hats of diversity specialist or intercultural education, I'm just mom. And many of your interactions are going to be with the everyday parent just like me. The one who seems really angry, but really it's just passionate fear because uncertainty is scary. I seem uninterested or bothered because you've called. I'm an overworked father and I really care about my baby girl. But my manager just saw me walk off the floor with my cell phone. So it's not that I don't care about her. I'm preoccupied. I'm just an everyday LRSD parent. That is my truth. And when I think about culturally responsive leaders and what it means, to me, it simply means intentionality. I'm going to be intentional about my time, my voice, my resources, and I'm going to adapt when necessary. Culturally responsive leadership is when I'm understanding that intentional inclusivity is not just solving all the problems on my own. It is bringing those to the table that have voices different from mine. It took me forever to get the words "great minds think alike" out of my head. Now it feels like nails on a chalkboard when I hear it because great minds don't think alike and they don't need to. Intentional inclusivity is moving from asking who's at the table to asking who's not at the table that should be at the table. And did they get detailed instructions to the location of the table and upon arrival, a chair and a microphone? Leaders, culturally responsive leaders, bring new voices to the table. Culturally responsive teaching is a research-based approach that makes meaningful connections between what students learn in school and their culture, languages, and life experiences. Essentially, it would mean why someone would explain to me why I needed to learn the Pythagorean theorem that I have never used as an adult, but when we're talking about culturally responsive leadership, it means that I understand that I need to be like water. Water is the most powerful force on earth. It can ebb, it can flow, and when impeded, it will find a way around. Leadership must be progressive, full of conviction, and necessary. It must be courageous enough to stand in convictions, even if they differ from previous ideas or information. It means that it's a commitment to lifelong learning. It's like being a scientist. When presented with new information, new facts, and new data, you're able to see a new outcome. And it is incumbent upon leadership to always look for those new outcomes. Oftentimes we talk about leadership and how when there was times of uncertainty, they were stoic or they were unshaken or strong. And I'm going to tell you, I do not question my leadership abilities. You may also see me crying and having a full humanity. I feel a whole moment where my full 360 self is on display, and that's okay because we are in a new landscape. So we can also strive to be culturally humble, and that is one of my favorites. I love cultural humility. It is simply the willingness to suspend what you know or what you think you know about a group, a person, a population, and allow someone else to be the owner of their own experience because they know their lived experience best. I don't try to negate, tell them that their experience is incorrect, or find ways for me to disagree with their experience. It is a lifelong commitment to self evaluation and self critique because we are not going to get it all right all the time. We all see things through our own lenses, and that's okay. That's why we bring other voices to the table when we're being intentionally inclusive. It is a desire to fix power imbalances if they exist in spaces that they should not. And my favorite part is that it comes with a side of advocacy or activism because it's where we advocate for those who may be unable to advocate for themselves. As a culturally humble and culturally responsive leader, we have responsibilities. And while it may seem simple, leaders must remember to lead. When I was younger, my father would always tell me, if the leader does not lead, one will emerge. And as a child, I don't think I understood the gravity of that. All I really understood was somebody used to be in charge and now they're not in charge anymore. But as I got older, what I learned is that if you are passive in your leadership, if you are not standing in conviction, someone else and someone else's culture will be in charge, and theirs will take root where yours should have. Your silence will be loud. So this is a scene from my favorite movie, Remember the Titans. And these two characters, the young black man is named Julius, and the white man's name is Gary, and they were fussing about something that happened in practice. And Gary is the captain of the football team. So after Gary decides he's going to chew out Julius, Julius turns to him and says, "Attitude reflects leadership, Captain." And even at 15, I knew that was heavy. Attitude will always reflect leadership in an institution, in a home, in a grocery store. Whatever leadership allows, expects, and ignores will be the culture that is set for that space. It is necessary to recognize that you can either create change, set culture, or you can be swept up and drowned by it and those that follow. It is incumbent upon us to understand as leaders that we have to continually self-assess and learn. It is not courageous to be vulnerable or progressive, it's competent. Oftentimes we celebrate mediocrity in this society when what we need to do is understand that everyone needs to be competent, and we continue to self-assess and remain culturally humble. But knowing that attitude reflects leadership means that if there is an issue, we have to look at the head. If you are anything like me, then you love an acronym. So I'm going to give you something to remember on how to lead, if you will. The L needs to remind us that leaders need to speak the language, not just in the realm of diversity and inclusion. That's not just about learning pronouns or to say disabled instead of differently abled, because culture is going to dictate how and when those things change. One thing is for certain is that in times of uncertainty and fear, we look to leadership. So our messaging must be intentional, it must be thorough, and it must be thoughtful, because what we say or not say will inevitably be pervasive in everything around us. Those who look up to us for guidance will perpetuate the missteps that we do if we are not careful and intentional. We must accept our part and understand that language is a labor of love. when I talk about messaging, I'm saying things like, we have to get away from saying things like great minds think alike, because we're celebrating conformity and it's okay to be an individual. Or I can't wait till things get back to normal. There's no more normal. And leaders need to be the one to assist those around us in getting excited about the fact that we are going to find a new normal. Right now, collectively on this planet, we are fighting a global pandemic. We are watching one of the largest civil rights protests in history, all while navigating a new cultural landscape, many working from home, many finding out that they are essential workers and did not know that prior to a pandemic. The cultural landscape is changing. It is going to be imperative that leaders, especially those in education, take the helm and assist as being a cultural diplomat. Even though we've all never been here before, it will be upon us to help shape, form, and sustain the culture that we'd like to see going forward. What we know is that normal previously, it did not work. There were disparities, inequities, and there were definitely power imbalances that needed to be fixed. And now, since we're going to have a new normal, we have an opportunity to change that. We need to remember that our actions, again, will always speak louder than our words. What we choose to say and not say will be heard by those around us. When it comes to accountability, once we set expectations, once we have said this is where we are moving, and we have individuals that are not following, we hold them accountable. We hold ourselves accountable for assisting in what is necessary to sustain that change. And when it comes to acuity, we stay sharp so that we can assist those around us with being better for them, so that they can be their best selves. I like to work smart, not hard. And if I can have everybody around me engaged, many hands make light work. I don't have a lot to do if everybody wants to assist in doing it as well. The E is for examining for equity. When we are talking about what is right, equality is already a law. We have laws that tell us that things must be equal, and we dole out things equally. But we did not get the disparities that we have in healthcare, criminal justice, education, wealth, by giving equally. And we will not fix them by giving equally. It's going to be uncomfortable, because equity is where we give what is needed to whom it is needed. It is inherently unequal, and it will look like preferential treatment, programs, philosophies, but that's okay, because we're talking about populations and groups that have been underserved, and it's okay if we move them up to the front of the line to assist with equity. If we have schools and Black males make up this much of the school, but this much of the disciplinary rates, it's time to examine those systems for equity. It's time to examine the implicit and explicit biases of the staff, and then teach and hold our staff accountable for those same biases. When I think about my upbringing, my father was a principal, and my mother did not work in education. However, my family values education. In fact, every day my mother would say, God gave you knowledge so you can go to college. It's only really funny the first time. She said it every day, and I guess it worked. My sister and I both went to college. I now work in one, and my sister is an OBGYN. But as children, they allowed us to think. They allowed us to argue, if you will. If mom said something, I could say, Mom, I beg to differ. And depending on how she felt that day, she may give me permission to differ. So if I then, as a child, go to school and I'm in a classroom And the teacher views me as being insubordinate, but really, I come from a culture or background where children are allowed to think differently from adults. That is going to make a difference in how I am viewed. I know, I lived it. When we're examining for equity, we are seeking to dismantle systems of oppression. We are seeking to set right what has been wrong. When we are talking about leadership in particular, right now there is so much being said and so much rhetoric around the Black Lives Matter movement. There are racial tensions. That's nothing necessarily new for Little Rock, but it does feel a little different right now. When we're talking about things like Black Lives Matter, leadership has to understand matter is the minimum. Matter simply means that someone is aware or they're relevant. And not just Black lives, but all lives should be valued, endorsed, supported. They should feel like they belong, included. Matter is the minimum that's being asked. And there's opposition to the minimum, which is why leadership has to acknowledge not only as matter the minimum, but more is deserved and has been earned. When we think about the population of children that we serve, when we think about the level of adverse childhood experiences, and what these children carry on a daily basis, matter is the minimum. We have to go further than the minimum if we want them to be more than their minimum. Leadership must also adapt and be adept. We must adapt and change when necessary. That is essentially what culturally responsive leadership is. New information is presented. I'm going to understand that new information because it's necessary for me to teach and share the information as the head and the lead with those around me. Leadership must set the standard. We must adapt. We must be adept. We must remain like water. Additionally, leadership needs to be daring. Leadership has to be willing to be uncomfortable as necessary to create change that is necessary. It is not comfortable to talk about race. It is not comfortable to talk about gender. It is not comfortable, but it is necessary. And so many of our students are uncomfortable on a daily basis that if it makes us uncomfortable for just a little while to make them more comfortable, then I think it's worth it. Leadership must dare to be uncomfortable. Leadership must also dare to look at old problems with new lenses. Now, in all fairness, as a diversity specialist, that's my favorite thing. I absolutely love new ways to look at old things. Leadership must dare to say, what if? What if we as leaders gave the effort and we put forth the effort that we ask of our students every day? What if we decided to learn just as much as they did on that day? What if we decided maybe 504 plans need to be reevaluated? Maybe restorative justice practices need to be reevaluated. What if we got more counselors and less police so that we stop socializing children to police officers but not mental health in communities that need assistance because they don't seek mental health? What if we dare to look at old problems with new lenses? Not just we've always done it this way. Leadership cannot be complacent with antiquated rubrics and ideas. We have to take it a step further. Leadership must dare to advocate. And we hear a lot about allyship nowadays, and that's fine. I encourage, it's a journey. There's not one step towards allyship. I personally am looking for co-conspirators. I want people that seek to dismantle these structures with me. An ally is going to verbalize that they agree with my plight. I need you to advocate in rooms that I may not be able to advocate in. I need you to say things in places and spaces that I'm unable to say these things. When leadership is willing to take a stand, it sends a message to those around them. Conviction and leaders of conviction are often very, very easy to follow, be it good or bad. I work at UAMS, and I am the LGBT liaison for our Rainbow Health Alliance, and I'm also the liaison for our LGBTQ plus subcommittee. We have walked in the Pride Parade for maybe the past 5 years, but we just walked in it because UAMS would not allow us to have our coats and things on at the time. We got a new chancellor, and I thought, okay, this is my time. I'm gonna go ask him if we can get a banner. I had been wanting just a UAMS banner with the rainbow flag on it. And it had become politically charged. We had, legislators and things that had commentary about the UAMS logo next to the rainbow. When we got our new chancellor, I thought I'm gonna try and sneak this in on him. And I said, he asked me what I wanted, and I told him that I wanted a banner. And he said, why don't we have one? And I told him why we didn't have one. And he said, we have to decide the type of institution that we are. And again, attitude reflects leadership. When that banner came, I cried like it was a Christmas gift that I had asked for years. Because the students, the community, the staff and faculty, they deserve to see themselves represented. Representation matters. We have to decide each and every moment the type of leader we are, the type of institution that we're going to be, and if we're going to make a difference with our integrity. One of the most gifted educators whom I've ever had the pleasure to work is this woman right here. Her name is Katina White. Katina is an 8th grade Project Lead the Way coordinator at Forest Heights STEM Academy. She is also the curriculum director. She and I created the Junior STEM Academy and the Senior STEM Academy at UAMS. These are culturally proficient, extremely fun, problem-based camps in the summer, targeted for underrepresented minorities and low socioeconomic students. Katina has one of the most amazing engineering minds that I have ever met. I say things like, Katina, I just want to play with fake blood this year and I want something to blow up. And then she creates, this entire curriculum around it. She's amazing. So amazing that that same diversity consulting firm that I created, I hired her. She was my first hire. I refused to do life without her. We were having a healing session, and this is something that we host for institutions and organizations where they're allowed to share. It's a facilitated conversation or discussion between participants on subjects centered around things like race or bias, and we try to create psychologically safe spaces so that people feel vulnerable enough to share. Well, in one of these spaces, Katina did share. She shared about her experience in being a graduate of J.A. Fair. The messaging that she received from her peers, from the district, from community members. And she also told me to tell you, if I was going to tell you, that she also went to Watson, J.A. Fair, and Mapleville, and she received the same messaging regardless of the school. And then after that, she shared her experiences as an educator. And she talked about how much it hurt to hear educators that she respected sharing the same messaging that she was told as a child. And she began to weep and she said, those kids have gifts too. It was one of the most powerful and poignant moments I felt I had been a part of in such a long time. Those kids have gifts too. I did not do well on the ACT. I took that course that you take before you take the course when it came to math. And I now work for the largest academic health center in the state of Arkansas. And they pay me to think. What if somebody told me that STEM looks like me? What if somebody had told me Dr. Dre is an engineer and that requires technology? What if somebody told me Tupac was a poet? Everyone is not a George Washington Carver. Everyone is not a Dr. Charles Drew. Everyone is not Mae Jemison. What if someone had told me that's the job of leadership? I'm going to play a brief clip from the closing ceremony and the charge that Katina delivered at our first year of JSA, actually.
You don't have to choose between being cool, having swag, and being a lover of science, technology, and engineering and math. I charge you to be all three. I charge you to know that you are STEM. So when I say looks like, I need you to point at yourself, and I need you to say me. Scientists look like me. Engineers look like me. Technologists look like me. Mathematicians look like me. Geneticists look like me. Cardiologists look like me. Pulmonologists look like me. Right. This looks like me. I charge you today because engineers, technology, all of that, science that you guys, we have a lot of fun. All of that looks like me. Say it again. Thank you.
I absolutely love that clip because what if somebody had told me STEM looks like me? I have an amazing life. I wake up and I do what I love every day. But I was also, even though I was an AP student and even though I was in gifted and talented, I was given incongruent messaging with my abilities because of my skin tone. What if it's leadership's job to say, STEM looks like you? I'm always going to fail if the rubric that you're grading me against is antiquated and it is rigid. What if my gifts manifest differently? Because those kids have gifts too. It is necessary this fall, especially with everything going on, to make sure that we know ourselves. The work must start here. We cannot be who we need to be for our staff, for our students, if we don't start here first. I need to know the scripts running in the back of my head because my implicit or unconscious biases will play out in the classroom, in the micro messages, and in all of my behaviors. And with everything going on, causing emotional and political tensions to be so high, so loud, and so noisy, I want my messaging to be clear, concise, full of integrity, inclusive, and that means I have to start working on me first. So I charge you to not only change the idea of what STEM looks like. I charge you not only to be daring and to decide what and how uncomfortable you're willing to be. I charge you to be a new you in a new space, because we have never been here before. We are all experiencing this for the first time, and nobody's going to get it all right. But if leadership doesn't keep trying, then we're all lost. Thank you.
Well, hold on, Amber.
I hope you can. Areas of growth, then that has to happen. But I think the first part is just the commitment to doing something different and to acknowledging that we're not going to get it all right. You have to be, I don't think that they're called courageous conversations. It should not be courageous or considered courageous to talk about something that makes up so much of my life, right? I am a Black woman. I operate and I navigate the world as a Black woman. And while it is not the sum total of who or what I am, when I'm told things like, oh, I don't see color and I'm colorblind, then you just told me you don't see my experience. You told me that all of the things that I have to share are unimportant, when so much of what I have to share is shaped by this one dimension of diversity. So I think that a commitment to being uncomfortable, acknowledging that it's not courageous to see and talk about what you already see, and then being willing to hold those accountable around us. And there are several resources that I will also send Mr. Forrest well, for educators that are out there.
But you also have Just Communities. Can you share why it was necessary to kind of almost have these groups join forces at this point in time?
Yes. One, before I share that, I would also like to give a shout out to Amy Cooper, the most amazing principal ever. And now I will tell you and answer that question. It was necessary because in the wake of, one, the field of diversity has been around for a very long time. But after the 2016 election, things kind of ramped up because I think we realized that there was much that we can't leave that outside, right? You don't get to just put down your thoughts and feelings when you walk into your business or into a school. And so diversity and inclusion and implicit bias training very much ramped up for most diversity professionals that I know. In the wake of these recent killings, murders, and the unjust treatment of Black and Brown citizens, then we have even more requests and such for training. So the Diversity Booth, being a very small company, and Just Communities also being very small, in order to just increase our capacity to work with like-minded individuals and to be able to, assist each other in kind of developing programming. Not to mention, Don Wood is the executive director, Donald Wood, and he is a white male. And he is intentional about centering minority voices. So working with him is specifically is another reason that the Diversity Booth chose to work with Just Communities. Because there are lots of people that want to partner, but they don't mean partner. They mean they want to center themselves. And so I trust his leadership and I appreciate his leadership and all that we're going to accomplish together. Whether it's in the school district, in the community, I'm excited about the things that we've already done and are going to do in the future.
Thank you, Amber. And one of the things that I want to make sure everyone understands is that we are planning on having Donald Wood at our convocation when we bring everybody back together to share some of these same types of thoughts and messages for our entire staff. So again, this isn't a one and done. We're going to continue to work on this. I know you've done kind of a closing thought already, but any final words for our team as we sign off from you, and understanding especially the power of us as being our kind of our motto. Anything that you want to finish with?
Sure. My favorite quote, how about that? Two things. One, I will say, I just want to say thank you for being here because, again, educators have a special place in my heart. But two, this fall is going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging for the students. It's going to be challenging for parents like me who are sick of online courses and this new wave that we're experiencing. But I want to read you my favorite quote from Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, and he says, excuse me, "We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. When human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant. Wherever men and women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, that place must, at that moment, become the center of the universe." Our administrators are going to have center of the universe moments over and over again this fall, and you have to be willing to take them. For every center of universe moment taken, it's one step towards where we're going to be. And for every center of the universe moment not taken, is 5 steps back towards where we need to be. So I encourage all members of leadership to seize the center of universe moments, even if that means calling someone out, addressing, making a statement, whatever is necessary, I think is necessary. I think that's all I have.
Wow. You know what's amazing about that is it sounds like we had preordained or set this up before this conference, and that did not happen, I promise you. And what you just delivered, you know, there's been amens throughout your presentation, but that was really wonderful. So thank you so much. And we are going to transition into the next phase of our presentation. We're going to try to deal with a technical issue we're having a little bit right now. And if everybody can come back onto the Zoom at 20 till, so you've got about a 6 or 7 minute break. At 20 till, we will do our final elements of celebration and the toast to our Leadership Institute. And we have the Sadie Mitchell Administrator of the Year Award still to come. So
can I say one last thing, Mr. Ford?
We're going to come back, and it looks like Amber wants to say one more thing.
One last thing, only because I had questions. I will put my email and phone number in the chat. I'm happy to talk anytime for any questions that we didn't get to answer. And then, of course, you can always contact Amy Cooper. She knows how to reach me. But yes, I will put my information in the chat, seriously, so I can answer some of the questions that maybe we didn't get to answer.
And just to add to that, I believe all of the resources for Amber is also on the conference tool website, but it's now in the chat as she's typing that in, so that it'll be available to all of you, and you can see it there, just popped up. And so please don't hesitate to reach out to her, but also know that we are coordinating efforts with Just Communities through Darian Smith and Randy Rutherford, with, of course, then Amber. So Amber, fantastic job. I know your uncle be proud, your daddy be proud, and we all are very proud of you as well, that you are a part of our district and then helping us grow today.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, Amber, and we'll all come back at 20 till. Thank you.